Welcome all of you. This is Professor Sudarshan from IIT Madras. I am the faculty anchor for the SIDDHI webinar series. Just a few words about our SIDDHI webinar series. This was inaugurated to commemorate the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And we'll be continuing this webinar series as a kind of dedication to Gandhi's vision of inclusive, sustainable, and equitable development of India, and the role of technology that is very important in the 20th, 21st century India as well. Today's speaker will be Dr. Pijush Ghosh. He is an associate professor in the Department of Applied Mechanics, IIT Madras, and he has received his PhD from North Dakota State University. And he is also the project lead of Teach to Learn, about which he's going to speak today. And it's an excellent project from IIT Madras to kind of engage with students in a much more hands-on fashion and to build knowledge and skills from the grassroots level, and to kind of create a peer-to-peer learning environment, kind of engage students and make the education more interesting and also more fruitful, so that people can have a sense of achievement as well in terms of when they go to school and learn. And a few things about SIDDHI. SIDDHI has been envisioned as a platform to create synergies between various stakeholders of India. It could be academia, experts from academia, industry, policymakers, civil society organizations, entrepreneurs, think tanks, public and government officials. So now I hand over the microphone to Professor Raghunathan Rangaswamy, Dean of Global Engagement, IIT Madras, to say a few words about SIDDHI, and also Professor Pijush Ghosh. Thank you very much.
Hi, welcome everyone for the third webinar in the series of webinars. I'm very happy to have Pijush present this webinar. The first time I met him, we both met on this was when we were both looking for CSR funding, and he was explaining how he's going to work on this idea. And I found the idea very interesting at that time, and I told him. I'm so happy to see that what was the idea then has come so far and has made such an impact. So I'm really happy to see that, and I welcome Pijush to take us through what has been his learning and how others can emulate some of the things that he has been doing. Over to you, Pijush.
One second, let me share the screen. One of you confirm me that it is visible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is fine, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Thank you very much for this nice introduction. And thanks to SIDDHI organizers for giving me this opportunity to share our work with you all. So good evening if you are in India, and morning and afternoon depending on where you are. So it's the last two talks, if you are there, after those two talks, one very practical and on-site implementation related, and the other one is a eye-opener philosophical one from Dr. Ashish yesterday. It's difficult to give a talk, but I'll try and see and share with you what we are working on. Okay, so here in this talk, so mentoring in nation building. So as you know, as far as nation building is concerned, there are different domains or sectors that contributes to a nation, like economical, political, it's the other sectors, different things. And here we are talking primarily about the education. So no matter where you go, whichever country you go, education is the core as far as nation building is concerned. And in this talk, we will be primarily focusing about on the education part. Okay, so before we go further, let me just show some very simple numbers and statistics. These I've taken from the Google image. Now, this is the demographic distribution of India in 2011, 2021, and 2013. On the y-axis, in this axis, you see basically the age group, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, in this way it goes. And as you see, I have marked with a green rectangle in each case. And if you notice carefully, you will find that we are actually having a huge group of population, which is falling between 10 and 35 in the year 2031. And interestingly, in a year or so, the median age of India is going to be 28 years, which is as opposed to China 37, Europe 45, and Japan 49. And more than 50% of Indian population currently is below 25 years of age. Now, this is the statistics, and then this is going to be there for a few decades. So India is going to be one of the youngest nations for at least a decade and a half, as far as the current statistics is concerned. Well, is it good or not? I don't know. I leave this as an information. On the other hand, if you see the other side, there's India's primary education enrollment is about 100%, whereas the higher education, the higher secondary enrollment is about 23.5%. The number can be slightly here and there, excuse me for that. And the UNICEF 2019 reports says that at least, this is very important data for us, that at least 40% of Indian youth are not on track to have the education and skills necessary for employment in 2030. So this is the other side, and I hope you get what I'm trying to show. Now, we don't worry about these two data. Let's say for now, let us be positive and think about the demographic distribution that I've shown. So as you see here, we have a huge number of youth populations in our country, right? And let us see how we can use this to our benefit and advantage and address the other two statistics which we are a little concerned about. Okay. Now, as you see from these plots or these from diagrams, that there's a huge youth population in the country, right, in India. Now, the question is the definition of youth, of course, varies who is defining it. But for our case, let us focus on the youth means the one that's the school, college, or university going students age group, who in a short time are going to contribute to the different aspects or the different domains of the country, economic, cultural, and everything. So this is what does the youth group that we are talking about, particularly in this work. So you have this huge youth population, and as you know, about 67.78% of the country lives in rural area. So the rural youth is around 68.35%, and of course the remaining is the urban youth. Now, as I said, this is the urban population on the urban population, which is about 30. What would be the remaining? Yeah, it will be about 32%. Now the question is, how do we harness this youth resource? There's a huge youth resource in the country. It is going to be there for quite some time. Now the question is, how do we harness this youth resource? That is what, if we can do that, we will definitely reap the demographic dividend of the country. If we are not able to do that, then it could be a demographic disaster. So it is very important that we actually make use of this youth resource, right? Now, as an academician, particularly sitting in one of the topmost institutes of the country, I feel, or let's say we from the Teach to Learn propose that one of the ways that you can actually harness this youth resource and take this in the right direction so that you actually get benefited out of this demographic distribution for the next few decades is to connect the students of the premier institutes with the rural schools. So I reiterate again, it is by connecting the students of the premier institutes, which means from the urban areas primarily, with the rural students. That's what we are proposing. That's the philosophy we're talking about. Now the question is, how do we connect? Connect in what ways? Right? There are some existing connections already, particularly in terms of the infrastructure development, in curriculum development, in career counseling, and things like that. But we are talking something beyond. So this connection that we are talking between these student groups is something beyond what exists now. And of course, it is there to some extent, but it is not used or utilized to the fullest potential. So so the connect in what way? So what we are proposing is mentoring. So mentoring is one of the very important and powerful mechanism by which we can actually get benefited if we can connect the students of the premier institutes with the rural students. Now, mentoring is not something very new or something novel. It is there. It is there for a long, long time. And even in India, also there are a lot of mentoring going on in different areas. And I'm sure you also mentored somebody at one point of time, or you got mentored by somebody, right? So in that way, it is not something very new. But most of the two things I would like to mention here, that most of the mentoring that you have seen or you come across are community-based mentoring. Whereas here, we are primarily and actually talking about the student-based mentoring, which is actually in the whole world is now actually working on this area to get make use of this and get benefited. So the student-based mentoring, which means the mentoring which involves the premier institute student as a mentor and the rural student as mentee. This is the mentoring that we are talking about and we are working on. Okay, so what are the benefits of peer-peer school-based mentoring, which is in short we called it as a SBM. Now, if you think carefully, although the mentoring is where the mentees primarily get benefited, but in school-based mentoring, if we can connect the mentors of the premier institute students, who are the premier institute students with the rural students, mentors also get significantly benefited. That's the beauty of this peer-peer mentoring. So as far as the mentees are concerned, definitely they get an exposure. If they come in contact, if they can connect with the premier institute students, they definitely get an exposure. They get an access to different facilities. They get motivated seeing their Anna and Akka in front of them as a success story. Then they aspire to be someone by looking at them and hearing stories from them. It can give an academic help, and also many times we have seen that in the rural areas, they need some career guidance at the right stage. And so that's also what can come out of this. Now, as far as the mentors are concerned, this is also what we have observed, and also we have got the feedback from our mentors. Definitely, this is extremely advantageous. It gives them the right skill development because they are the one who are going to step into the job market, into the professional field. And so right before that, it gives them opportunity to hone their skill, to get an idea about how to deal with people and things like that. Of course, it develops in them the sense of social responsibility and the purpose of like economic contribution as a professional. And very importantly, if you have the right platform and through that, they can actually get the joy of giving back. This is actually very important. And many of them have reported that what a fun it is to give back to the society from where you're coming from. So there's a very obvious advantage of these peer-peer mentoring between the two set of students. So this Teach to Learn is an initiative. It's just an initiative, not an NGO or anything else, where we make the effort to connect the premier institutes of the country with the rural schools under the bigger umbrella of peer teaching, peer learning, or let's say peer-peer mentoring. That's all Teach to Learn is all about. And as I said, it's just an initiative within IIT Madras for the to reach to the underprivileged sector of the society. Okay, now let's come to the mentoring little bit before we go to our mentoring models. So as to give a background, what is our approach, and it will make a little bit more sense. Now, when we talk of the mentoring, there are three major domains you can think about. Like there's intellectual, the social, and emotional. Now, as far as intellectual domains are concerned, it's kind of about the critical thinking, the problem-solving ability, and also the academic temperament. Those are the things that comes under intellectual. Because there are many others, but just to give you examples. As far as social mentoring, social domains of this mentoring is concerned, it's communication, very important, because that leads to a connectedness, which is the important aspect of a personality of an individual. Social awareness and social responsibility, and the leadership. The third one is leadership. And as I said, there could be more, but these are just three examples. And the emotional one is the self-esteem and self-belief. This is very much lagging in the rural student. confidence, motivation and goal setting. These are, I feel personally, looking at the rural students, I feel that this is the area where we need to work the most. If you work on this, the other two can come up. But if we are not able to address this aspect, then it becomes very difficult. So this is another important aspect, domain of mentoring. All right. Now, how do we mentor? What is the approach we take? If you read literature, you will find that the literature actually classifies these into two parts or two approaches. One is the instrumental approach. Sometimes it is called perspective approach as well. And the other one is called the developmental approach. So what happens in the instrumental approach, just to give briefly an idea, in the instrumental approach, you have a particular objective. Okay? You have a particular goal that you want to attain or you want to address, and that you want to do it through your mentors. So essentially, most simple example would be to improve the weakness and mitigate the losses that you see through typically through a short-term relationship. Okay, that's what it is done in instrumental approach, and it is inclined, as you see, since you have a more goal defined, more objective defined, it is inclined more towards the skill development and knowledge transfer. So that's how the instrumental approach in a brief would be. Now, as far as developmental approach is concerned, it is a little bit more general. It is more holistic. So it aims to improve mentees' socio-economical, socio-emotional, and intellectual development through a reasonably larger, duration relationship. And it is flexible in their expectation of the relationship. There is no particular, objective or goal set. It comes up depending on the mentors and mentees' need and their other factors. This actually develops. So that's more of a developmental approach. Now, the question is which one is a good one and which one is preferred? Well, we have read a lot of literatures, and what we have found finally conclude the literature kind of these days, the 2020 literature they're concluding is developmental approach has its own disadvantages, particularly when it comes to how you assess, how you evaluate the growth, how you evaluate the impact. An instrumental approach becomes more like a job, more like a specific objective oriented. Hence, here many times it is found that the mentees, the overall growth has not happened. So it has its own demerits. However, now the current suggestion is that, or that's what also we are following, is that it's a nice balance of the developmental and instrumental. That's what it is being advised, and we are also kind of following that approach. So these are the two school of thoughts, and now they feel that it is actually important to be a mix of both. Now, our mentoring approach, what is that? That the approach that we are taking, that we have in mind when we formulate our models and take it to the field. So the way we do is a mentor strength plus the mentor-mentee interactions. So mentor strength, by that I mean is that we are sitting in the campus of an engineering and technology inside the engineering and technology campus, our strength is engineering and technology, right? And something similar to that. So that's the strength. So the mentors coming out of this campus, their strength is that. And so if you are from the medical campus, you have your own strength. If you are from the management campus, you have your strength. So whatever, depending on which campus you are, that strength should be one component. And then the other part is the mentor-mentee interaction, which is more generic. So that's the approach that we are taking. And this is kind of taking care of the instrumental aspect. So the instrumental aspect, which is more knowledge transfer based, skills transfer based, which is more like a particular objective at your hand that you want to take it to the mentees. That's what the mentor strength by that we mean. Whereas the developmental aspect takes care of the mentor and mentee interaction between them, takes care of the developmental aspect. And this is the kind of a cart that goes from the mentor to the mentee as far as our approach is concerned. Okay. Now, let me very briefly talk about the advantage of this approach. Not necessarily the approach that we're talking, but the approach by the peer mentoring, by the students of the urban of the premier institutes mentoring the students of the rural institute. What is the benefit of that? A very cartoon schematic that I'm trying to show here. On the x-axis is the time in years, and the y-axis are the different groups involved here. I would say the beneficiaries, the mentee, mentor, and professionals, okay, like me. Okay, so what happens is they are actually connected in this way. So as an academician, as a professional, I'm actually we are trying to promote and encourage this mentoring. And these Premier Institute students, they are actually mentoring the rural students. Okay, that's what it is happening. Now, what happens is these rural students, in few years, they are going to come and be a part of the Premier Institutes of the students. And the Premier Institute students who are students now, graduate students, they are in a few years of time, they are going to be in the professional, in academia or any other places, doesn't matter. So once this rural students move to graduate students, at least it is expected that certain percentage of the students will also encourage and appreciate this idea, and they will also try to provide the mentoring to the another set of the rural students. Similarly, those who are professionals, those who are in the academia or other profession, they since they have got the fun, they have actually seen the benefits when they were graduate students, they will definitely try to promote and encourage. And we have seen that particularly during our funding things, when the funding agency, we talked to them, they said, okay, we have seen we have mentored some students and we know the benefit of this. So now I am in the company and I have the the authority to provide you funding. I will definitely do that. So this is how it started, actually, our funding thing. So this is a very interesting cycle. And I mean, as I said, even if not 100% of these are expected to be in the loop, even if certain percentage of these keep on being in the loop, it's actually a huge benefit to the society. So this is one of the biggest advantages of this peer-peer mentoring, or this Premier Institute student mentoring the rural students. Okay, now let me come to the Teach to Learn school-based mentoring models. I will take you through this in a brief. Now, I'm not going to the details here. There are a lot of details connected to each of these models, particularly the implementation, during implementation, like getting permissions and developing modules, training the mentors, and all these things are there. I'm not going to those. If you have questions, then maybe I will take up those questions, and through the questions, I will try to answer those. But here, primarily, we are going to give the concepts. Even I'm not going through the analysis of our results, that the data we have collected from the surveys and other things. So I'm going to give you an idea about each of these models from Teach to Learn. Now, each of this model, as I have shown here, is going to have its core. So each of these model has a specific skill and the development objective. Besides that, if you think carefully, it has also some peripheral benefits that it adds to the overall mentoring process. But each is having its own set of skill and development core. Okay. Now, let me take you to one lab, one school. Now, this is not something very difficult. One lab, for those of you know, the lab means, let's say, a kind of a family, you can say, of master students, PhD students, and sometimes the undergrads as well, and the advisor. So if you look at it in the Premier Institutes, these labs there, each lab is having around somewhere about 6 to about 20, 30 students, depending on the size of the lab. So that's one lab. So one lab adopts one rural school, rural government school, and provides mentoring in the areas of academic and career counseling, primarily to the 9th grade students. And I will talk about what is this academic mentoring that we are talking about. So that's the one lab, one school idea. So one lab from the Premier Institute, let's say from IIT Madras, is connected to one government school, rural school. We are talking about rural school because that's what we are working with, government rural school. And then they actually mentor these schools throughout the year, or actually for 2 years. So the core development area here is the academic and scientific temper, and the core skill is the hands-on learning. That's what I think in the other talk, there was someone asking that, how do we do that? And can we do this in India? So the core skill is the hands-on learning or the experimental learning, whereas the development area, as far as the development area is concerned, it's academic and scientific temper and motivation. So let me take you through what exactly it is. Now, these three are the three main pillars of this mentoring that we're talking about. as the academic mentoring that we're talking about. It is primarily the skill-based part. So it's about details of the daily used devices. I will come to that. Whereas in the concept base, it is a science in everyday life. For example, why like popcorn pops, or why the milk overflows, why water does not. Like those type of science in everyday life they see. And the research based are the research related work that the graduate students are doing in their lab. So take the flavor of that straight to the students. But the major pillar or the main focus is the skill based or the details of the daily used devices. So what do we do here? So one lab, which as you can understand is 5 to 6 students, sometimes 10 students, depending on that day availability. So one lab visits one particular school, the school they are connected to, 6 to 7 times a year. Okay. And every time they go, they carry a new device. And these are the devices which are not very complex. These are the simple devices that they use in a day-to-day life. And also the principal mechanism or the principle or the theories behind these devices are kind of covered in the class 9 or 10 science of the physics books. That's how these devices are chosen. So these are the devices which are not new to the mentees, to the rural students. They see that, they use their everyday life. So these are the devices that the mentors take, multiple copies of this that take to the rural students. And what they do is, it's a wonderful one-day visit. So before lunch, they actually dismantle these devices. For example, as you see here, there are different components. And in the process of dismantling, they explain them what each of these components, the function of each of these components, what is the material, why it is like this, why the circuit is like this, things like that. And post lunch, what happens is and then they assemble it back. Okay, the graduate student, they assemble it back. And after the lunch, what happens? The rural students, they actually break into groups, and each group is taken care by 1 or 2 graduate students. And now the rural students, they dismantle it and assemble it back. And during this process, the graduate students actually ask them a lot of questions that, okay, why this is this, why this is this. Some of these questions are already given to them in their module, and some they generate of their own. Now that's the interaction. So that's what happens in the full day. Okay. And sometimes they play a game with them. And also at the beginning, first 1 hour after they reach the graduate student reach the school, they do is they actually ask them some the science concept based questions like I was talking about, and then they set the stage basically for this device demonstration part. So that's how the full day goes. Now I just like to mention here that what we have observed from our field visits is that the rural students are actually very efficient in opening and in dismantling and assembling it back, these devices. So the mentors are not actually teaching. That's not the main idea of this. It's not they're teaching how to assemble or dismantle and assemble it back. The main thing is that interaction that they have between these Anna and Akka, with the Akka and these younger rural students for the whole day. That's the most important thing, and that's what we have seen, and is actually the major outcome of this entire process. So that is about our one lab, one school idea. So in a brief, if you look at the steps that happens on the day of a visit, a lab reaches a school, rural schools. So they travel. So depending on the distance, it can take 1 hour to 1.5 hour from IIT Madras. So the lab reaches a school, rural school before assembly. Now they get the student excited, as I said, set the stage for the next demonstrations. Everyday science presentation. They make the PPT and they play the audio visual, they explain on the board, and then they basically excite the students with those. And then the demonstrations and teaching, training of the device by the lab. And then finally the school students dismantle and assemble the devices towards the end of the day. And these are the steps as you see here. This is on the figure on the right hand side showing that the students, the graduate students from IIT Madras, they are actually explaining them some of the interesting questions, everyday science related questions. And then they are they're having some toy here. I think the winding, some toy, I don't see here exactly what it is. And they're in a groups. And then afternoon, as you see here, the students are now handling this device. They are opening and then assembling it back and things like that. So this is a set of activities that goes on in a day of a visit. Now, trend is something, is another model which is very similar as far as the core of this model is concerned. It's very similar to one lab, one school, because as you see in the one lab, one school, because it involves a travel. So the students from IIT Madras campus, they can only go so certain distance, travel a certain distance in a daytime. So with this, we cannot actually reach to a larger population or to larger areas, more areas, right? So what we do is we do the complementary one, where we actually host or bring the rural students at IIT Madras, and then we train them with this device engineering and other teaching skill, who in turn goes and then train their fellow students. So it's very similar as far as the core idea is concerned, except few differences here and there because of some other reasons. So for example, in the last year, 2019 December, we brought 50 students and 17 teachers from 17 rural schools across 12 districts of Tamil Nadu, which are far away districts, even from Kanyakumari. And then we hosted them here for 1 week, and then we have trained them through our, this is some of the trainers. So there are another set of trainers. There are many graduate students who are trainers actually, and then they train them, and then they go back and then they demonstrate in their school. So as you see, the trend and one lab, one school are very similar as far as the major objectives are concerned. So that's another model. So the steps are very simple. Again, the model awareness through demonstrations and presentation among beneficiaries. Then we train the school students in device engineering by IIT Madras students when they come here. And then the trained students, they go back and they teach peers in their own school and the neighboring schools through posters or through PPT under the guidance of the school teachers who were also part of the workshop when they came here. So that's about the trend. And these are some of the pictures from our recent trend workshop. And we had a plan for another 60 schools this year, but then we could not do this year in the sense 2020, but we could not do. But now we are getting ready slowly for this year. So here, this is a quick idea about where we have actually implemented this one lab, one school, and this trend. Now, as you see here, the triangles, the green triangles are one lab, one school, and the trend is the red circles. And as you see here, the trend, as expected, the green circle, and this is the IIT Madras Chennai. So this is we can go only so far as because it involves travel. Whereas when we are talking about the trend, when we are bringing students from remote areas, we go quite far, and we want to go further actually in our next upcoming workshops. Now, there's another model. This is a C-4. This is what we actually started in Teach to Learn at the beginning, and then we moved to one lab, one school. But this is a simple, very simple model. So the model hypothesized that in a school, if trained and mentored, it's very important, trained and mentored, a student studying in standard or class C will be able to successfully teach a class of students 4 years junior to him or her, that is standard C-4. That's how the C-4 comes into picture. So for example, a students of class 8 or 9, let's say 8, if trained and mentored from time to time, very important, can teach the class 4 students successfully. That is the C-4. That's what the hypothesis is. It's again nothing new. We do that often in the Teachers' Day. We teach the seniors, teach the juniors, and things like that. But here we want to bring it a more structured way. We want to give them the necessary training that they need, and also we want to inculcate in them some qualities which otherwise they have not actually gained. Okay. Now, again, as I said, each model has our core skill and the core development area. So as far as this model is concerned, the core development area is confidence and self-belief. So here it is not, the idea is not to create teachers, it's not to replace the school teachers. So that's not the idea. But the idea is actually to inculcate in them the qualities of a teacher. And teaching is just taken as a mechanism. And so when we talk about the qualities, the two most important is the confidence and the self-belief as far as the core skill development is concerned. And in the process of teaching, the whole process of this training and then the teaching, they develop the skill of planning, organization, developing the communication skills and things like that. So that's the idea of C-4. And in a brief, what we do here, let me give you an idea so that you are familiar with, if you want to implement at your area, what we have to do. So we select and bring C students to IIT campus. Again, typically we do 50 students per workshop, which is about, 5 to 6 students from each school. So, and then we train the C students in the two aspects. That's the uniqueness of our model, on the non-cognitive aspect and the cognitive aspect, which I'm going to come soon. And then these C students go back and they teach the C-4 students in their school under the guidance of the mentor teacher or the coordinator teacher, who is also part of the workshop. So all these models, when the student comes, a teacher also accompany them. In that way, they also are involved in this. They actually get to know the essence of these models. Okay. And then what we do is we do the mentoring and monitoring from our project office. These are the steps that's involved in C-4. Now, let me give you an idea about what we mean by these non-cognitive and cognitive things. Now, when the students, they come from these rural areas, very remote areas, the first day they come, if you ask them their name, they will not raise their head. So from that point, you have to take them to the point where they stand confidently in the class and deliver a lecture, right? That's what is the path. So what we do is, if we straight away start teaching them how to teach, it's going to be very difficult. So first thing is that we have to develop a relation with them, and that we do through some ice-breaking sessions, through some professionals and things like that. And then slowly we train them on these interpersonal aspects, like for example, how to connect with the students, how to make your teaching interactive, how to do the time management, resource management, communications, and eye contacts, and all these things. And through different games and through different activities, after 2 days or 2.5 days, when they are ready, when they know what they are here for, when they're pumped up, when they're very enthused, then we go to the cognitive part that, okay, if you want to teach, how do you teach, right? So we normally teach them the 4 P's that we call as planning, then preparation, then practice, and then presentation. The 4 P's we teach them, that we have modules for each of these, and each module has its own details. And then slowly we take them through these modules, and then we also give them the documents so that they can use it when they go back to their schools. So in this way, for example, if you are teaching respiratory system, let's say for an example, how do I plan it? How do I plan to teach that? That's very important. What do I have to do? So that's the critical thinking part. And then, okay, fine. Now I know that these are the things I'm going to include. How do I prepare from what are the different resources? How do I put things together? How do I organize my organize and document things? These are the preparation part. And then the practice is so important, because that's where your body language comes up. That's where your confidence, that's where your eye contact, all these. And then of course, how do you deliver? So this training is given sometimes by professionals, but recently it is being given by some of the graduate students as well. So this is a kind of a mentoring that happens during this process. And after that, they go back and they teach there in their respective schools. So as you see here, so some pictures, they come here and to IT campus, and then this is a training that we are giving them. Now they are teaching in their respective schools, and then we go and visit the schools time to time and get the feedback, and we do the necessary mentoring, both for the teachers as well as for the C students. There's some of the feedbacks. I will not go through this. You can also see in our webpage where all the beneficiaries, whatever feedback they have given, we have some of those in our webpage. Now, these are some of the schools that we have implemented the C-4 already, and we had again a plan for 20 schools, but we could not do. But we are getting ready for hopefully the next summer we can implement. Now, coming to another one, this is the last model. I will go very briefly through it, then I will take up questions. This is a Mentor India. Now, this is something that we have done the brainstorming during this COVID time, where we cannot implement now. I mean, where we cannot do the field implementation, but this is the brainstorming that we have done, and this is what we are going to launch in coming April or actually from coming summer if everything goes fine. Now, what is this? This is slightly more broader. So this is a one-to-one or maybe one-to-many also, where the students of a premier institute of a country mentors rural school students to their overall personality development. This is what we are talking about, the overall personality development and the life skill development, those things, with a particular emphasis that we are giving in social awareness and social contribution. That's what our specific goal is, emphasis is, but more it is like an overall personality development. Okay. And as I said, again, we have the core and the core skill and development area. The core development area is the social awareness and social contribution. And the core skills, development of the communication, critical thinking, and problem solving. So I will take you, this is the only slide that I have for this implementation methodology. With a lot of details we are working on, but we have kind of developed the framework for this we want to share with you. So it has two parts. One is on-site skill-based training, and the second one is the off-site or remotely developmental-based training. As we have seen that the beginning, that the instrumental part is more of an skill-based, knowledge-based, and the other is the developmental part. So this has both components. So the on-site skill-based training actually going to be these three things. So we have going to have three units for this on-site skill-based training. Now, before a student, the idea here is, before a student actually start thinking about the social contribution, before they can work on any project, before they can think of coming up with a problem definition, they actually have to have an idea about how to actually even think, right? How to put a thought on a paper, how to communicate to somebody. So we thought that actually it will be very important if we can actually give them a training on the communication aspect, which includes, as you see on the right hand side, both writing, so for example, PPT making, presentations, and these things, and then the critical thinking. Now, the critical thinking is we are taking through a slightly different route, and we are taking this to a science concept, device engineering, scientific facts and stories, because as I said, this is one of the strengths of our campus. So all these why, how, where, when, these type of questions, critical thinking related questions, will be done through this module of this program. So now, once we have given them some knowledge, some skill is transferred from the Premier Institute graduate student to the rural students. Now, actually, they work towards the social awareness and contribution, which is primarily the problem solving, identify problems around you, and proposal writing even, and working on some socially relevant project together under the guidance, maybe under the guidance of the faculty, or even sometime be just the graduate student and the rural students. So that's the on-site skill-based training, the module that we are actually working on, and we have converged to. Whereas on the off-site developmental-based mentoring, if you see, when this will be done over the telephone or over the Google Meet or Skype or whatever it is, here particularly we are looking about the developmental part. So when we talk about the developmental part, it is will be primarily addressing the goal setting, self-confidence, then academically how to motivate those rural kids from the academic perspective, and then developing them the self-belief, developing them or inculcating them the social responsibility. So these are the things that are going to come from the offsite or the developmental based mentoring. And I'm sure you can understand this, that during this process, it is not only the mentees who are going to benefit it. Again, we say that the mentors who are taking this to the to the rural kids, they will also be going through this exercise, going through this process, and they will also enrich them in a different ways, and will be useful for them as well, right? So that's the whole idea, and particularly this exercise is going to be very useful for them, because they are the one in a year time or two, or in a 2 years time, they will be going into their own professional careers, right? So this is what the thought process of this Mentor India part, where we are talking about more holistic development, as you see, but still keeping the strength as far as this on-site skill-based training is concerned. Now, this is going to be a 12 to 18 months duration. And the uniqueness of this is we are working on the modules for a 1 week mentor training. Now, this is a very important learning that we have from the other mentoring programs across the world, where they mentioned that it is so important that the mentors be trained very well for the success of this mentoring process program. And this mentor and mentee will be connected through portal. So that's one of the ideas. So that doesn't matter wherever you are sitting, you can still connect to you depending on the different conditions or different criteria. So that's about the Mentor India, which we are expecting and hoping to launch in the coming summer. Now, coming to the funding support, there are many who asked this question that is it really possible in India to do, when Dr. Rajesh was giving his talk about this skill development program that he is doing. And to answer them, yes, it is possible. There are many funding agencies coming forward. Indian government, DST, under the banner of NCSTC, National Council for Science, Technology Committee, I think, they are actually encouraging this type of projects. And even there are projects for the schools also, for the schools. So if you are interested, you can actually write project proposals to them, and also you can write in collaboration with us. So that will be a very interesting thing to do. I mean, it is not just the premier institute go to the rural schools, is also important that the rural school come to the premier institutes and work together to make this happen. So there are funding possibilities, and so we acknowledge really the contribution of Technique FMC. This is where all our journey started. Of course, IIT Madras Alumni Association is extremely helpful. All these models started there as far as the pilot studies are concerned, and then we moved to the next level. Verizon is very nice. We really nice people. When I say nice, I mean very nice people. They contributed and still contributing to this effort, and we really acknowledge their help and support, without which we cannot do anything. And the Tamil Nadu Education Board, Rastriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhijan, we work very closely with them, because no matter what you do, how good your model is, to implement, it is always good that if you get their support. So we acknowledge their support as well. Now, of course, the SRF Foundation is also one of our implementation partner, which we are working on the C-4. So we acknowledge all the supports, and we are very grateful to them. Now, the idea is not just to sit in an IT campus. We have done pilot studies. We have seen the benefit out of this. There are a lot of good things came out of this. But now, the results part, the statistics part, I have not shown. But now, what the idea is that, okay, we have to take it to the different parts of the country. And the way we have built is to make sure that all these modules, documents, everything, we are building it in a way so that it is portable. I can take it from one to the other place, and that again, they don't have to start from the scratch. That's the whole idea. So that's the idea. So if you are, doesn't matter what domain you are in, a school teacher or a funding agency or a premier institute, if I would be very, very happy to work with you and take it to the rural parts of to the other parts of the country, and see if we can the other rural students get benefited out of this. Okay. So that's pretty much about our models, and I would like to thank once again the SIDDHI organizers, and giving me this opportunity to share with you our ideas and thoughts, and what the models that we are working on. It's a long way to go, but I think we will do that, and your help, your cooperation, support is extremely important for us. Okay, with that, I thank everybody once again for listening to me, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much,
thanks. Yeah.
Dr. Pijush. It's a great initiative, and hope it will succeed at the pan-India level. There are quite a few questions from the audience. There are some specific questions, and some of them are actually slightly general. There is one question about any tips for an amazing mentor-mentee relationship.
Yes. So this is actually there's a caveat always. Anytime you read the literature, you will see that's the caveat they start with, that what is expected to be a good mentor. Now, the first and the most important thing is for both mentor and mentee is to listen to each other. That is the most important thing that we have seen, that every literature kind of telling. Do not just go and try to push things on him or her without knowing and understanding the situation there are, things around him or her. That is the first thing that you should have as a mentor. Similarly, as a mentee, if you are a mentee and you have you know that you are going to be mentored, and you have that intention to get mentored for your own benefit, it is extremely important that you listen to the person, and then slowly see how you can take this relationship forward. So that's the most important thing that most of the literature keep on telling. Of course, there are other things also, like for example, you have to, if you are going as a mentor, it's very important to do this planning timeline wise, that okay, how do I go from step 1 to step 2? What is my backup plan? From step 2 to step 3, when do I go? What is that when I see in the mentee, only then I go to the next step. So this is another, that planning is extremely important. Otherwise, you will rush through some time. Then what will happen is that the student will lose interest, and it will be, not student, let's say the mentee will lose interest. If you are going too slow, then again, it will have another effect on this. So that balance is, of course, very important. So these are some of the tips I would say that I have read from the literature. And I have also seen our graduate students expressing to us. That is one thing. And another very important thing, I think what that Dr. Rajesh also mentioned the other day, I think it's the same everywhere, no matter where you are. If you are going from the Premier Institute as a mentor, you first make sure that you are his or her friend. You actually convey what is the intention instead of showing your social status or position. That's very important. And that's the attitude you need to develop as a mentor when you are going to your mentee. So that's the mindset you need to develop. That's another very useful thing that we have seen that works very well. So the trust gaining is very important. Okay, and for that you need to be also working on your own mindset. So these are some of the small tips that I would say is very important to start with, and then slowly we will learn during this process.
So the next question is, what percentage of IITM students participate in these activities? And is it compulsory for IT students, or is it part of the curriculum or voluntary? The question
Okay.
asked.
First of all, I will start from the bottom. It is voluntary. It is not curriculum. I mean, it is not compulsory. But let me tell you, the vision of this is to convert this effort to a culture, so that one day it becomes a kind of an obvious duty of a graduate student coming at IT Madras that, okay, I have come here. I know that I have a job also, job in the sense, in the positive sense, that I would make sure that I will mentor at least one rural students. That's the culture that I'm talking about. That's a long vision. But to answer your question, no, it is not compulsory. But let me tell you one thing: there are a lot of volunteers, there are a lot of students with a big and broad heart. Only thing is that we have to tap that resource, we have to give them the platform, we have to reach to them, and you will see that students will keep coming. So for example, in one lab, one school, so there right now we have about 23 labs in 2 years that we are working on. So we're working with, so 23 labs means it's about 23 into, let's say, about 10 students. So 230 graduate students are in this process, and some of the students have actually given their feedback in the web page. You can see that how they have got benefited out of it. So from efforts should also be from our side, because the graduate students are busy. They have their own pressure. Sometimes they have to meet the deadlines and all other things. But we have to make an effort to reach to them, to convince them, to tell them that how it is helpful and useful. But at the same time, I can say that there are a lot of students who are willing, interested to be part of this. Only thing is that they do not have time to develop this, to build this. So if you can give them a platform, there are a lot of students who will come forward and actually do that. That's what we have noticed and observed. To answer the question in brief, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. There's another question about the resistance from the rural schools. Do you experience any resistance from the rural schools, and how do you overcome these hurdles?
Yes.
Please share your advice.
Yes, so this is another question, I think, point that, again, I go back to Professor Rajesh's talk, that he also mentioned that it's not going to be a red carpet for you at the beginning. And I think that's where the important is your approach. What approach you take? How do you convince them what you have come for? That's a tip I would give it to. For example, I will tell you one small experience I will share. Like in one of the meetings or workshop, I was talking about the C- for in West Bengal. And believe me, almost 2-3 teachers, they stood up, and then they were they asked the question in a very aggressive tone, asking that, do you think that what we are doing, you can actually make a teacher in a 1 week workshop training? Do you think that the kids can teach better than us? So this is a question that we faced, and that day we realized that, well, it has to be very clear. And that's what I said in my talk, that the idea is not to create teachers, not to replace teachers. It is about inculcating in them the qualities of a teacher, that's organization, that confidence, that planning, and all these things that a teacher is supposed to have in them. And teaching is just a mechanism. And this is only a mechanism and where they can these kids can discover themselves, the kids can find themselves confident and things like that. So through this example, what I mean is that your intention has to be very clear. You have to need to do some homework, that if you face this, and to anticipate some questions, okay, if you face this question, what you are going to answer, how you're going to answer. But at the back of the mind, you have to be very clear that, okay, this is your intention and this is how you are going to convey to them. And what I've noticed is, if you are very clear with your intention, if you are very positive about what you are going to do, it takes only few minutes or few hours to actually convey to the person on the other side. They will soon realize that this is not something that is detrimental for them. It's actually good for them. So that is where also I said that you have to come to their level and mix with them, have tea with them, have lunch with them, and things like that. Even if you want to have to sit on the floor, you do that thing. Those are the things which help them to take them closer, break the barrier. So different individuals have the different way of breaking the barriers. That barrier needs to be broken very carefully. And after that, you will see that there's such a wonderful people, the rural schools, when they will, I enjoyed talking to them, working with them, and listening to them. And they also like visiting us, talking us. So it is only a couple of hours, let me tell you. After that, this should be very okay, because there are only nice people around, mostly nice people around. Let me put it this way.
Thank you. And as you know, probably there are lots of questions about funding, how to get funding, and then is there revenue stream and such questions. So
Yes.
any advice?
Yeah. So see, what I have noticed is that first of all, many school teachers, they want to work in this type of project. They have their ideas, and then they want to work on this type of projects. Now, my suggestion to them is actually one or two teachers have started writing the proposals in this line. So if you are a school teacher particularly, or you are in the rural areas, my first suggestion is, whatever concept or idea you have, put it on paper, because there are a lot of ideas will be going on, and tomorrow it will take a different route, a different shape. If you have any idea, take your time, do your own brainstorming, put it on a paper, because only then you will see that it is actually taking the right shape. Once that is there, then depending on what you are actually going to work on, what is your objective, you actually approach the right person for the advice, because you may not be knowing. For example, you can collaborate with us, you can write to us. Many of us, many faculty at IIT Madras work with the rural schools, from the humanities department, from other departments, they work with rural schools. Write to us if you need a help, and we are there to help you to tell you that, okay, you approach this funding agency. For example, as I said, NCSTC have funding for the rural schools, for the schools, for the colleges. And for example, that's what is that program called, where college teachers can actually come to IIT and then they can spend their time. I forgot the name.
QIP.
QIP is there, but the college students of the regular universities, what is that recently they have? Anyway, so there are programs. Watch out for those programs from the DST in the DST webpage. And also there are programs, for example, where like Premji Foundations. There you have where they fund the rural schools or the schools related projects. So there are many such avenues. One thing is that you have to have the objective very clearly defined. You have to know what is the budget you need. You have to have the methodology very clearly written down. All these things, when it is there in place, then you approach different funding agencies, and we can help. As I said, also watch out for those places that I have mentioned. But believe me, there are sources of funding these days, even for the school projects. So do not think that funding is a problem and stop. If you have an idea, let it grow, let it mature, give it a proposal shape. We will help you in writing the proposal, and then take it to the right funding agency. That is my request and suggestion.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh. So this is from me. Can you mention any transformational experience that you have had with respect to any particular school or student or region, or challenges as well?
Correct. So there are actually small many, but one of the things that I would just bring out, particularly to highlight that C-4, what is the indirect advantage? Like one of the schools, the teachers mentioned, both the coordinated teacher and the headmistress from the Chennai outskirts, they mentioned that after they have gone through this program, we do not know how good they are a teacher or how good they can teach. That's not the thing. But what we have seen is that the students are now coming forward and taking the stage. They are actually coming forward and willing to participate in the inter-school competitions, which some of them were not willing to earlier. So that is something I think is worth mentioning. So do not expect that they will be a good teacher, but look at the other sides involved in this in this process of the C-4, for example. This is just to give an example, since you asked these questions. that these are the experiences, and we have seen, and there are many such like comments that are shared by the schools who have gone through this, and also our mentors, the graduate students. Some of them we have actually listed in our webpage, where they have said that this is actually giving a very good opportunity for us to come to the level of the rural school students and explain things. We know the research, what we are doing, and we can explain, but coming down to the level of this rural school student and explaining, it's a challenge. And in this is the way where we are actually able to do that. So these are small things, but besides that, we have a systematic way to collect the feedbacks at different stages from different beneficiaries, and we have a statistical analysis which shows there is some improvement in the grading, even in the academic achievements also. But that, I would say, it is too early to tell that this is because of that. We have a long way to go, but qualitatively we have been hearing a lot of positive things about this. But still, as I said, it's a long way to go from here.
So thank you, Dr. Pijush Ghosh, and so thank you very much for the excellent lecture. And also, I would also like to emphasize that your emphasis on developmental as well as instrumental aspect or cognitive aspect, and it's a nice blend of these actually comes out very well in your webinar as well. And also in the approach, teach to learn is also a process where you learn from teaching and you also teach while learning, right? So that's a very interesting way to actually put it forward, and it also democratizes the entire process of learning and education itself. So it's a great initiative. Hope this goes all over India and then becomes a great success. Now I hand over the microphone to Dr. Karthik Raman, Advisor of Global Engagement, to give the word of thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. SIDDHI.
Hey, so thanks a lot, Pijush. It's just wonderful to. It was wonderful to hear you. I mean, I've been involved in the program with you, and I've seen things on the reality on the ground. Visiting schools and all that. It's really nice to see the glowing eyes of all the students. So I wish you all the more success in your efforts, and I really hope that this becomes more pan-India, right? Yes, it's great to have initiatives from your side, but it also helps to if things are drilled down top down, right? I just noticed that now the PM Research Fellowship actually has necessitates that the fellow goes and interacts once a week with the neighborhood Polytechnic Engineering College. It's sort of bad now because of the COVID times, but I think otherwise, this really, these kind of pushes will really help. And anyway, so once again, without belaboring, congratulations on all your work, and thanks for joining in and spreading the word. I think a lot of people will really get inspired by this kind of work as well. Very topical for the Education Week as well. Thanks again, Pijush. Thanks again to all the participants for tuning in. And I hope you've been following SIDDHI webinars, not just this Education Week. We've had a lot of interesting such series of webinars in the past as well. You can find all of them on our website and on our YouTube channel. And we always look at SIDDHI as not just a single one-off webinar, but something that nucleates more interaction with the speakers, more discussions and so on via the website or offline and so on. And finally, enabling hopefully internships, projects and the like. So we request you all to be tuned into our SIDDHI website. We have a very interesting webinar coming around on Republic Day. So this is Dr. Sunita Narayan, who is the Director General of the Center and Treasurer of the Society for Environmental Communications. So we have a very interesting webinar coming up on 26th. So please do join us for that, and wish you all a good evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye.
Pijush. Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.